Hi everybody, welcome to Monday's Indycar. I'm Gordon Ross. It's the 31st of July, nearing the end of July now, about to start into the merry month of August. And today's subject is crowd numbers at independence marches. Yesterday and the day before, in fact, my last post gained somewhere in the region of 45,000 views. Now, 45,000 views is a lot actually, even for this show in a single viewing, but it shows you the levels of interest that are being generated in independence by events like those staged at Inverness recently. The march, the march in Inverness, the crowd numbers were hotly contested by dozens of trolls who took to the social media both during and after that march to try and rubbish the numbers that were coming out from the official count. Now, who counts the numbers of people on a march? Well, that's normally done by the chief of police and policemen on the ground, and that's to basically make sure that everybody is safe, so they know how long the procession will take to proceed along the route, so that they know where to place policemen, how long the traffic will be waiting, and when to stop the crowd to allow some traffic through. So the police control the numbers. They actually monitor the numbers, they do an accurate count of the numbers, and they produce the figures at the end of the day which we can rely on. Now also we have our own people on the ground making a count of numbers, and normally these agree fairly roughly with the police numbers. They're not absolutely spot on. Now obviously it's in the interests of the pro-British side, if you like, the British nationalists, for those numbers to appear to be low, and they were claiming that there were only something like 3,800 people on that march. Now we know that that's not the case, because apart from anything else, nearly 6,000 people registered that they were going on the march and went on the buses and got on the trains and actually appeared at the site. And also there were several hundred other people who didn't march, who are waiting at the finishing point at the park. So we can add another several hundred onto the final totals. Now, is it important how many people actually attend these events? Well, yes it is, because it's a barometer of how many people are getting behind independence. That what is missed a lot of the time is the fact that when people are marching through a town, it's not to a silent reception. There are thousands of other people hanging out of windows, lining the streets, also waving saltire flags, also shouting encouragement, smiling, laughing, taking pictures. And these are the passive marchers, and they also have large numbers. I know this from being on several marches. One of the smaller marches that I went on in Dunfermline, where there were about 3,000 of us that day, and it was a much smaller venue. As we marched through Dunfermline, there were only 6 people with Union Jacks who shouted abuse at us. 6. Everybody else in the town smiled, waved, took pictures. We very rarely saw anybody indifferent to the march. Now this is the point of marching, and this is the point of everybody marching together without party political flags and without party political slogans. We are marching for independence. We're not marching to get the Tories out. That will happen as a part of independence anyway. We are primarily marching to claim our independence back, to get our country back, to rescue it from Brexit, and to rescue it from the idiocy of a London government which has completely lost control of the country. So when we march, the purpose of it is to show people that it's not true what they're hearing in the media. The point of marching is to be visible. The point of marching is to make physical human contact with people on the streets and say, it's okay, independence is real, we do want it, and there are many, many hundreds of thousands of us who want it. And here we are in your town to show you that what the BBC, what ITV and what the newspapers are telling you is wrong. There is a huge appetite for independence. We need and want, desperately need, another referendum on independence to rescue the country. And what we're finding when we go on marches, everywhere we go, is that despite the fact that you might have maybe 6,000 people registered to go on a march, we can guarantee that however many people say they're going to go on a march and actually respond to the the social media call and register on the site, at least 2 to 3 times that number will actually show up on the day. And not only that, but somewhere in the region of another 50% more will line the streets. They don't want to march necessarily, but they want to support us, and they come out and they do support us. They wave their saltire flags, they hang saltires from their windows, and they cheer as we go past. This is what it's about. This is where people make a difference. We can't do much about the mainstream media pumping out endless 24-hour-a-day propaganda that says we don't want a referendum. But what we can do is show up in towns in huge numbers to prove that that is not the reality. That's the fantasy. That is the propaganda. The reality is the people on the streets. The numbers of people on the streets increasing every time we march. It doesn't matter the size of the venue. If a venue is a long way away and it's smaller, then fewer people will turn up. But it doesn't matter, because it takes the message out there. And it takes the message out there in crowds of people that a place that size has never ever seen before marching through their streets. This is going back to the old ways of raising the levies, of getting people interested in saving their country, of saying to them there is a threat, no matter what you've heard, no matter what the British government has told you, that's not true. The truth of the matter is people everywhere in Scotland are on the move, they're protesting, they're demonstrating, and they're marching for independence right now, and we are here to prove it to you. That this is the reality, not the television. The television is not reality. The news is not reality. The news is what you're being allowed to see of reality. And the message that's given to you, the voiceovers over the top of the television pictures, are the media message, which is being sanctioned by the government officials. Remember, there are Tory supporting individuals at every level of the BBC, controlling the output and steering the editors to make sure that the message is always there. Great Britain first, great this, British that, flag waving here, flag waving there, Union Jacks all over everything. Never a talk about Scotland, never a talk about independence, and don't even mention the word independence on the BBC. It's banned virtually. You're not allowed to say anything good about it. So marching is important, not because it's fun, and not because we get a chance to do a lot of flag waving and shouting and singing and having a party, although that's part of it. The main thing is that we show up. As Woody Allen once said, history is written by those who show up. And that is true more than ever in Scotland. If we don't show up, if we don't march, if we don't keep showing up in people's towns and showing them that we're here, that the rest of Scotland wants independence, that they're not alone, whichever town they live in, no matter how many people in their town think that being British is best, they are not alone. Remember, most of the central belt of Scotland is pro-independence. We need to take the message out to the Highlands, to the islands, to the coastal communities, to the mountain regions of Scotland, to all of the parts of Scotland which have not been visited yet. The point of marching is human contact. We don't have the ability to command the whole of the mainstream media. We do not have control of the levers of power that command the propaganda infrastructure of the United Kingdom. The UK has a media which is entirely at the beck and call of the establishment. The messages that go out from the media are largely those approved by the establishment. As I said the other day, the Russian government has often admired the BBC because, as they put it, not only have you got the world's most subtle and long-term and most successful propaganda machine, you've actually persuaded the population to pay for it as well. We now need to keep the pressure up and to keep showing up in our tens of thousands wherever we go. And the next one will be Dundee, and then there'll be another one in Edinburgh, which we are hoping to make somewhere in the region of hundreds of thousands. We don't know how many, but we're hoping to get hundreds of thousands for Edinburgh. We have to keep building the momentum. We have to keep showing up day in, day out, in front of people's front doors, in their main streets, in their parks, through their shopping centres. Remember that the British nationalists will try to question the numbers, the counts. They'll say that they've done their counts. They'll say that we're lying about the numbers. All they need to do, and all you need to do, is look at the police estimates, because the police estimates have to be made accurately in order for the march to be safe. Look at the camera angles. Look at, for example, the static cameras that are placed at strategic places by Independence Live, and look at how long that huge body of people takes to get through that camera picture, through that one frame. The last time I looked for the march in Inverness, it took nearly 40 minutes for that enormous crowd of people to get across that bridge. Now 40 minutes means that procession was somewhere in the region of 1.5 miles long, and that is a hell of a lot of people, no matter what number you put on it. But as I say, the point is not just the numbers, it's the people who line the streets, the people who shake your hand and say thank you for coming, thank you for doing this. You could see that even the stewards were being patted on the back and congratulated in some of the pictures by people on the pavement watching the procession. There was one small, as usual, small enclave of about half a dozen people waving Union Jacks, shouting abuse, and the one character who used to be in the British National Party, who's in this very dirty Union Jack top shouting through a megaphone his usual hatred and his usual nonsense about being assaulted and being abused. Everybody just ignores him, and in fact that's the best thing we can do with people like that, is just ignore them. But let's remember what we're fighting for. We're not fighting to get the Tories out, although that will happen. We're fighting to get ourselves out of the UK and get ourselves back into control of our own future and able to do our own deal with Europe on whatever terms we like. I'm not saying that we should definitely stay in the European Union forever, but it would be nice, even if for the time being, after we do become independent, that we can remain in the EU for a little while until we build up our strength and decide how we want to relate to the European Union. And we can do that ourselves with our own democracy and our own vote. We shouldn't, and we should never do, we should never accept being overwhelmed by 55 million voters in another country which has different needs from ours. I don't blame English people for wanting to stop their country being overcrowded, because it is overcrowded, and it may be that they need to have Brexit in order to make a stand and to try and get control back over their borders. That is up to them. But for our country, we don't need that. And in fact, that will damage us badly. So the message from Indycar today is keep marching. And all of those of you who watched marches recently, going through your streets, now you know how big the movement is. Why don't you join the next march as well? You'll notice that there were dozens of disabled people, elderly people, people who were blind, people with dogs, people with children, young families, single parents, unemployed people, bank managers, motorcyclists, you name it, all manner of people from all over Scotland. And it doesn't matter who you are or what you do, you can join a march. All you have to do is go on social media and look, and you will find where the next march is, and you will find friends wherever you go in this movement, of all parties and none. All under one banner is non-party political. It only exists to march for independence. That's its primary concern. Nothing else matters. We're all marching for the one goal. We're all under the one banner. So join in. Don't just stand waving at the side of the road next time. Why don't you get involved as well? I'll see you soon. Bye for now.